Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Criminal Minds Season 1, Episode 3, Won't Get Fooled Again. Episode in a nutshell is exactly what happens in this episode in a brief, one run-on sentence format. The team track a bomber copycat who is mimicking a previous bomber who killed 6 FBI agents and who targeted regular people to hide his real victim, who had caught him forging collectible coins. Now that I've rewatched the episode, I am going to be ranking the episode on our 2 standard lists. Once again, a mostly objective list that has no emotion in it, and then the personal ranking, which is where my opinion and feelings on the episode apply. All right, so with our mostly objective rank values, I've highlighted those that I felt applied to this episode on the screen. So first we have a single episode supporting character introduction, which is worth 1 point. And this is with Adrian Bale, who you'll remember was mentioned in episode 1 as the bomber who took out 6 FBI agents and was the reason that Gideon had to go on his leave that he has just come back from at the start of the series. He's in prison. The bomber of the episode is copycatting his bombs and is revealed to be a forger who was forging coins and so killed his real victim and then some other people at random to disguise the fact that he was targeting the person that he had sold some coins to. Adrian Bale is brought in and a deal is made with him in order to try to stop a bomb that was strapped onto a hostage's chest. And he makes a cushy deal for himself that gives him plenty of perks, and then he gives false information. Gideon, though, having learned his lesson from Boston, where he cost the 6 agents their lives because he felt like he could negotiate with Adrian, and obviously failed at that, is told by Adrian when he interviews him that he would not be able to resist seeing the bomb go off, that it would allow him an emotional release. And so when Adrian says to cut the red wire, Gideon takes a chance and says to cut the blue, which turns out to be the correct answer, and so Adrian Bale loses his cushy deal, ends up back in prison, and Gideon basically leaves with the one-upmanship with saying that he had told all the other prisoners before Adrian went back into the prison how willing he was to give up information on them. So not only did he lose his deal, but now he's a persona non grata amongst the other prisoners, all for a release, and it is shocking how intelligent people will work against their best interests for this so-called emotional release. But anyways, that's the character that we are introduced to in this episode, and that's +1. We also, as a result of that, have the resolved subplot. As mentioned, it was mentioned in episode 1, the reason for his leave was that he lost 6 agents to Adrian Bale in Boston, and that caused him to go on a 6-month stress leave or teaching leave or basically out of field work with post-traumatic stress. In the second episode, when one of the kids is lighting a cigarette, he has some flashbacks to that same incident. And now finally in this episode, we have met Adrian Bale, that killer, and Gideon has one-upped him, gotten his closure, shall we say, to that episode, and we are now hopefully able to move on from it. And so that is worth 2 points. But this episode did have a couple of negatives. One, it was pretty unmemorable. All 3 of the first episodes have been unmemorable. But then there are a lot of standout episodes that do come in later. So I promise not all of them are going to be unmemorable. However, once again, this one was, and that is worth -4 points, which already puts us at a -1. And then also I felt that this concept for the main plot was a little bit on the weaker side. Like, there's a reason that it was unmemorable. I mean, ultimately, like, this guy killed several people, almost killed a child, because an old lady was going to sue him because she found out the coins he sold her were a forgery. Like, it's such a petty and stupid reason. Like, she was like in her 80s. All you had to do was wait a few years and it would have went away. That was harsh. That was mean. Should not have said that. But it's a fact. The point of the matter is, like, it was all meaningless. That was number one. Number two, there was that whole subplot with Adrian Bale, and I accept that that existed, but that was the subplot. That was not the main plot, so doesn't really matter to here. Then, of course, there was the fact that I kind of felt like the episodes, we're only on episode 3, but we've had like two similar kind of concepts back to back. You know, an arsonist and a bomber, they are different. Obviously, one sets fires, one explodes things, but both setting a fire and exploding fire are both fire related. And it felt like 1 and 2, for those episodes to be back and back, it would have been nice for there to be like some separation between the similar concepts because it's like we're on episode 3 and I already feel like I'm repeating myself in a sense. But overall, that doesn't really matter because we already are in the negative and the lowest score that they can score is a 1. So unfortunately, this is our first 1 out of 10 episode in the series. So now that we've got our objective ranking, a reminder of the season 1 rankings so far. On our mostly objective ranking, in first place we have Extreme Aggressor, then we have Compulsion, and this episode is in last place, Won't Get Fooled Again. So now we come to my personal ranking, and as mentioned before, this episode is basically a bomber who is targeting an old lady because he forged coins for her, and the insurance company wasn't going to insure them because they saw that they were fake, and she was going to hire an investigator and so on and so forth, and he was scared of that, and so he decides to forge bombs by using Adrian Bale as the base that he's forging from. And that brings the two plots together, and he basically targets a bunch of innocent people to disguise his true target. Then, to try to get away and get a helicopter or whatever, he sends in a hostage with a bomb strapped to his chest. And then he blows himself up in a suicide. Boom. And because he did that, they don't know how to undo the bomb, so they bring in Adrian Bale, who's been forged from, to tell them how to fix the bomb. And then Adrian Bale, being kind of emotionally driven versus logically driven, gives up a cushy deal in order to try to get an emotional release from watching this guy blow up. Gideon has his number now, has figured him out, tells him to cut the opposite wire of what he says. This stops the bomb. He loses his deal. Gideon gets his closure. The officers don't blow up, and everybody goes home. Honestly, not the strongest episode. I don't have many feelings about it. We didn't really see much character development or growth apart from Gideon getting his closure. It just, and then it felt repetitive. And it just felt like there were other things that I could be doing than watching it. It was not the strongest episode. The series is a strong series. This episode, no. So it was a 1 out of 10 for me as well. I agreed with the objective. Like, even when I'm recapping the episode, I can recap it in a couple sentences because not much happened. Nothing that was like really, really important, at least. Like, it just didn't feel like it needed to be there other than the closure, which they couldn't get the closure for the full episode. So they did this other bomber forager thing, which just fell flat. Anyways, having said that, season 1 ranking so far on the personal ranking, in first place we had Compulsion. Second place was Extreme Aggressor, and then this episode is currently last place, Won't Get Fooled Again. And this now brings us to our final segment where we are going to be ranking each season against each other, and we add the number scores of each episode in order to find our total ranking. We make a percentage out of it, and then highest percentage obviously will be the best season, lowest percentage the worst season. So far in season 1, we are adding another 1 to the objective, which will bring us to 18 out of 220, and also a 1 to the personal ranking, which will bring us to 14 out of 220. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Criminal Minds. Season 1, Episode 3, Won't Get Fooled Again. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.